Yeah. Can you handle your own unmuting, Kathleen, or do you want me to?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Tracy had sent a message not too long ago, several hours ago, saying she was not going to be able to attend because of all the school startup things she's involved in. So I do not know if that will change how
Who was that?
Tracy
Oh,
Garner.
yeah.
And she was going to, I was going to turn over the meeting management to her so that
Right.
you could do the evaluation. So we'll see if somebody else is able to do that on, instead of her, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Well, if not, we can wait another month. It's no big deal.
Not going to kill us. Although I think Sarah wants to get it done and over.
I know. Sarah, don't worry. You've done a very good job.
Oh, well, thank you. My heart would not be broken to wait till next month.
Okay, all right. And I've got a very early meeting in the morning, so I don't have a problem going home a little bit earlier myself, but that's.
Well, then let's go ahead and do that next month then. And Sarah, don't you worry. You've done a fine job, and we'll get this done quickly so everybody can have an early evening.
Cool. I see Heather joined, and I see Karen is joining. That's nice.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Just wonderful.
Cool.
Heather.
Oh, I'm waving, but my camera's off.
Does it help now, does it?
No.
No, it doesn't help me. Just my voice, I guess. That's it.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can't see you at this point, but we can definitely hear
I
you.
can't see you,
I don't
but
know.
we can hear you.
Well, maybe that's not good, guys. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing here?
I don't know. What are you doing?
Poking, pushing buttons, nothing's happening.
Are you on your phone or a tablet, Karen?
No, I'm on a tablet right now. Okay, not on the phone.
Okay.
I can see Sarah and you, Kathleen. That's it.
Okay, well, Heather has not turned on her video, so she's just a little rectangular block with her name. I don't know if it works exactly the same on the tablet, but if you click down near the bottom of your screen or touch near the bottom of your screen, it should show you an audio.
There I go. Okay.
There you go.
You know, if I keep poking enough, I'll get it. Okay.
Don't be afraid to try. So Karen, did it work did you get the invitations from Dropbox to the new folders?
I've had a lot of disturbances since I talked to you. So no, I'm not quite there. I'll do it afterwards.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I just wanted you to know that I did delete I deleted you from the old ones and then I re-invited you. So hopefully it will clear it up.
I have a bat in my fireplace.
Oh no.
So, yeah. Oh no. It arrived last night and it's all enclosed because it's a gas fireplace. And I don't see him now. And the cat hasn't come up here and yelled. So maybe he left the way he came. Can always hope, right?
Maybe.
Bats are not good.
No, they are not, especially if they get, into your attics. I mean, and really take up residence. They're horrible.
Well, there's an exit to this fireplace outside, so it should be fine. I'm hoping. I'm not going to call my friends at 9:30 or 10 at night and scream about a bat.
Well, that's very considerate of you.
Okay, I'm set. I found all the information I was looking for.
Yay, good.
And I thought it was good. Okay.
Let's see. So I know that Tanya will not be able to join us by Zoom, but she'll watch on YouTube. So she'll be
Okay,
out there in the audience.
Okay.
Tracy is not able to be with us this evening, but I have not heard from any other board members at this time. But it's still early. We've still got 4 or 5 minutes before officially starting. So
well, that's all right. There's a few of us.
yeah, not quite a quorum yet, though. So.
No, not quite a quorum. I know. We should have a vacation month where we don't come. But in today's world, you can't do that because I have no idea who's functioning, what's functioning.
It's
Right.
hard to keep
Are
up.
we read? Are we read today? Or we don't know?
I don't believe we know. I thought that they made those announcements on Thursday after they collected the data on Wednesday, but I could have that mixed up. Wouldn't be the first time.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it makes no difference. Makes no difference. I mean, everyone will go back to school and I'm sure we'll be in the red. I don't know. But they are testing a lot more in Brown County, so that's good,
Mhm.
you know? So,
I guess it's good if the positivity rate goes down and or stays the same rather than going up.
I want it to go down.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they have a new flu vaccine, guys. Senior flu vaccine.
So what
Which-
does that mean? Senior
That means
vaccine.
if you're a senior, you run in there and get it quick because it's free. I don't know. My in-laws texted me, go and do that now. So I did it and it's fine, simple, so hopefully I won't get anything else. So we don't have any other people?
Well, we've still got a few minutes, and I think last time people came on, I mean, I have 6:27, so still a few more minutes.
You know, the people that I feel sorry for are the children,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
students.
Yes.
My grandson is a senior this year. I hate for
I
him to
know.
miss out on,
Mhm.
the normal academic
Right.
year.
Right,
He's-
right.
You know him, Karen,
Yes,
Matthew.
Matthew, I'm sure is champing at the bit to get out of school.
Well, I don't know if he's anxious to get out of school. He's anxious to get in school.
Mhm.
He's
Well,
working
that
there
would
at
help.
Kiley's.
I know, I
But
know.
he
I can't
loves soccer. He loves soccer, and he loves the academics,
Yeah,
and he does pretty good.
he does. You're right. You're right.
So
We don't know.
I see Harold
And yes, Harold is joining us, or Mary Ray, whichever.
through Mary Ray. He's joining
Yeah,
us.
that's Harold. We know that's Harold. Yeah.
We know that's Harold.
Yeah.
Because us grown-ups, we're able to keep busy with we still have our book club readings, and they've been very, very good.
That's good. How do you do that, Kathleen?
I read them on my Kindle.
Yes, and how do you discuss them?
How do I what?
How do you discuss them in the book group?
Well, we haven't discussed them yet, but I've got about 3 months worth of discussions.
Oh, good.
Those books, Karen, whiter
I
than
haven't
snow.
picked up any of them. I haven't done any of them. So
We had the list of what the books were going to be for the year, and two of them I'd already read, like the Glass Castle, Jeanette
Yes.
Wall,
yeah,
and
I
then Where
read-
Crawdad Sing.
yeah.
And I've even got the DVD of the Glass Castle. So I'm hoping one of these days we can have a get together and watch the movie.
I'd like
So-
to have an up book in that reading group, an up book where
I
someone's
wish
not.
you could come up and join it.
Well,
We
I
were
like
talking about meeting outside, just
okay.
10 feet apart in the field,
Yeah,
So,
just yell at each other.
so
okay.
Well, I see Mark.
Mark's here, Harold's here.
And
So
I don't see Harold.
we have 4 board members joined now, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the recording since officially that makes you a quorum and it's, you know, public has got to have access. And here comes Amber. Just to bring everyone up to speed, Tracy had notified us today that she would not be able to attend, so that
Okay.
leaves, who does that leave? Sue, I think, is the only one unaccounted for. Is that right? 1, 2.
Mark, myself, and Harold.
Who am I missing?
Who's missing?
Barbara.
Barbara, thank
Right,
you.
right.
Thank you.
We're not doing very well, are we? Gosh.
You know, and I'm thinking to myself, did she say something to me about last month not being here? I don't think that's the case. I think she's going to be here this month, but I could.
She was not in view last week. She was just a spot, but we could hear her. Oh, and also
Oh,
there's
actually,
Amber.
she texted me and asking for to resend the link. So excuse me while I go to my email and.
Sue is also not here. Is Sue coming?
I do not know about that.
I don't either.
We don't know a heck of a lot, do we? You look very serious, Amber.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. You're allowed to do that.
I'm trying to get my lighting situated.
Well, it is hard. You have to position these lights. Oh, I know. Not a great thing.
Well, it's past 6:30 now. So what do you think?
I say we rock and roll.
I
Okay,
agree, Mark. I'm ready.
okay.
I'm ready.
So
Let's go.
I just sent Barb the link because she had just texted me and said she couldn't find the link. So I'm just sent, so she should be joining us as soon as she gets that email and can get with us, but just FYI. So I'll bring everyone up to date. So Tracy had said she was willing to take over hosting so that we could do the evaluations, the performance evaluations, but she's not able to be here tonight. So
We're not doing them, right?
Well, I suggested let's just wait a month. I think
It's
they're both
okay.
doing-
I've got all my info nation now, so I'm set.
Oh,
Mm.
so if
I
you're all
think that's
good
a
with
good
that,
idea. That's a good idea.
postpone the evaluations and unless you know, of course, if you've got something to say to either Sarah, you can always say it, you know that. And we would
Right.
hope that that would be the case, that you would let us know sooner rather than later if
Mhm.
there's something
Mhm.
that we should be doing that we're not doing, so. Okay,
I was
so here comes
wondering
Barb.
Like
about,
what?
Barb
Oh,
connecting
okay.
now.
I was
there-
wondering about Sarah's evaluation. If we could have a conversation with her, since this is, isn't this the first formal evaluation we have had? So if we could have a conversation with her, so, because a lot of the stuff we don't know.
Well, I was very resourceful, guys, and I pulled out her interview sheet. So I have information.
I was gonna say, I can absolutely, once we're done with the other business, I can leave the meeting myself and leave the rest of you on, and you can have a conversation and do whatever it is you need to do. And then Sarah can let me know when that's done and I can close out the meeting, you know, so.
But Tracy always is the secretary of the evaluation, so usually that's what happens.
Well, and that's why we're postponing to next.
We're not gonna do
meeting.
that part, Harold. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we could ask Sarah a question if we wanted to before we did. Yeah, which is okay.
Mark, You didn't finish what you were getting ready to say.
I'm
No.
sorry.
No, I did. We're
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yep, we're
Okay.
good.
So are
I
we ready to get started then?
We are, Barb has
Mhm.
joined, although she is muted and no video, but she is here, so I'm hoping she hears us.
She just can't talk, right?
Well, not at this point.
I can hear you.
Cool.
Yeah, everything's
Okay.
good.
Good.
Okay, then let's do the roll call.
Okay.
Mark,
Yes,
Sue? Oh, she didn't join, did she? Harold,
Yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, public participation.
So we
Um,
have Heather and Amber here joining us in the meeting. I do know Tanya was going to, as she could, watch the YouTube live, but there's nobody else. No one had requested to speak to the board, so that's it for the public.
Okay, so can we have approval of the minutes of the July the 15th meeting that I wasn't able to attend? You would have laughed if you'd have seen me. I look like something out of I guess a horror movie, you'd almost say. It's still a little funny looking. Like my one eyelid is, it looked like I had one big fat bulgy eye, but it's coming along. So do we have approval of those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 15th.
I second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mark,
yes,
Sue, I'm sorry, Harold,
Yes,
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, correspondence.
Sure. I sent the correspondence to you by email. It's also was in Dropbox. Quickly, the Public Library Fund for August was pretty high, but that was anticipated because the deadline for filing income taxes was in July. So those proceeds came in August. It was actually up almost 15% from what the estimates had been. But year to date, the PLF is about 3.5% under the original estimates. Considering all of the things, that's really not too bad, actually. And I had looked last month at what we had anticipated, and if we averaged about $68,000 per month through the rest of the year, we'd be meeting that goal. So far, so good. That doesn't mean the rest of the year is going to come in every month this high, but you know, it's looking good for now. It's looking relatively stable, which is nice. And then we did get the certification from the Department of Taxation for next year's public library fund. And they're estimating coming to the county about $1.16 million. Our share of that, $720,000-ish. That's as compared to what originally was projected at $775,000 for this year. So big drop in those initial projections from 20 to 21. But we know that 2020 is probably not going to be coming in at 775,000. So it may not be as big a dip again as people had initially projected, but we have yet to see what's going to happen. And I see Ginny Bridges is joining us as well. So she may not have speaker or video, but just so you know that she would also be joining us.
what was the estimate for this year?
I'm sorry, Harold, repeat.
In comparing the Brown County for next year, what was the bottom line for this year?
The bottom line for this year, what we had anticipated and set as a revenue goal was 775,000, and next year 720,000. That was our original appropriation. Honestly, I don't have in front of me what we had reduced it to. So that's why I'm saying if next year comes in at 720,000, that's probably right along the same level as what we're going to be getting this year. Best guess, okay, best guess.
Okay.
And then
Report. Oh.
I was going to say, and then OLC has flooded us with information. They're sending something out a couple of times a week, but I have whittled that down for you all so that we're not going to be taking a lot of time, but there are a couple of high points to note. There is now CARES Act funding for public libraries. Yay! And we'll be talking more about that in detail later. And Sarah has registered for the fiscal officer training. So after having a year under her belt, it'll be interesting to see what do they really teach you that you don't. And the census, and Amber may at some point want to jump in with this since she is one of the leaders in the county for getting census information, is right at this point in time, the federal government has said that they will be stopping all census activity as of September 30th. I know that there are some people at the federal level who are not necessarily happy with that, but it is what it is. And so we need to do our part in making sure everyone in our circles knows and gets the word out, because
It's important, yeah.
counted means, funding to our area. So yeah, very important. Amber, did you want to say something about that? Is there anything more to say about what's going on with the census?
No, you hit it. Some people are not. There's a concern that maybe the count won't be accurate by ending it early. However, I can tell you that they have resumed door-to-door no response checks. So it was kind of put off because of COVID. So we still have time for people to respond. Basically, they have until someone knocks on their door to fill out the census. So we can continue to encourage that.
You could always ask them when they come in the library, have you registered for the census? It's not difficult, and they could do it right at the library online.
That is true.
That's if we can get into the library. I'm sorry, Amber. I don't know if we're awake or aware, but I never know if the library's open or not. Is it open, or do you just have to call for an appointment still?
You need to go and look at our website, Karen. That
would help, Liz.
It's by appointment, but if we're not at capacity and you come knock on our door, we'll let you in. So.
Oh, thank you, Amber. That's good.
I do have a question. If you did register online, which I did, do they have a record of that?
Because
do. Nobody has come to my door.
Well, if you register, they won't come to your door.
Right. Then door-to-door knocking is for no response. It's just no response only. So You shouldn't have anyone knocking on your door if you responded online.
Well, I wouldn't mind even if they did, but I just wondered if, because I did have a friend that said she registered online and someone came to her door and it made her very uncomfortable because they didn't have any kind of a badge or anything that they were doing the census, but they said they were. And she was just very uncomfortable because she said, I've already done mine online, and they didn't act like they believed her, she said. So
they should have some identification, right, Amber? Don't they have identification?
Yes, they have a census.gov and like government identification. They also carry around a device like a tablet that they use to record your information from.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I will
good,
tell you
and I'm
that they
glad
do
she-
identify themselves as, with all the proper identification. So it's, I mean, if she responded, they shouldn't have had anyone there
Well,
unless
she
there
was a little leery about unlocking her storm door. And she said then, if they didn't
They
show any
didn't.
identification, she was glad that she didn't, because she lives out back a long lane by herself.
Well, I mean, we've been we've been trained a lot by our local rep that there are scams going around, but hopefully, everybody turned out okay from that situation. But they do have self-identifying, very prominent badges that say like U.S.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Amber.
Well, after you do register, usually afterwards you can get a receipt saying I've registered, and I copied mine down and stuck it in my file. So,
I've
I
had
don't
so
know.
much going on. I don't know if I did or not.
Well, it was real simple. The whole thing was very simple,
Yeah,
not
it
difficult.
It was very simple.
Yeah.
So moving on from the census,
Okay.
more updates. I've talked about the Patel research about the testing for COVID on library materials, and results of yet another test. One of their series of tests has been released. This one indicated that materials made of plastic, such as DVD cases and plastic storage containers, actually retain the virus longer. So we'll be looking at possibly extending our quarantine for at least those materials to 5 days instead of the 3+1. 3 days was what they gave us for other kinds of materials. And so on the 4th day is when we have been releasing those materials from quarantine. So we'll be looking at doing something a little bit different. The managers and I have a meeting scheduled for Friday morning, so that will be one of the topics that we will be touching upon. Let's see, trustee dinners. Okay, so normally in the spring, Ohio Library Council hosts trustee dinners, and it's always a challenge to get people to attend that, but they have scheduled it for the fall, and they are doing it online. It is 1 hour. Obviously, there is no food involved. They're not going to send DoorDash to us or anything like that. Sorry. But they have invited legislators to join the discussion. If you are interested in signing up, it's from 6 to 7 p.m. on September 3rd. That is a Thursday. That is a Thursday. And if you would like to, you can either go to OLC's website and register yourself, or you can get in touch with me and I'd be happy to register you if you want to participate in that virtual meeting. It might be very interesting to find out how OLC has been doing, what they've been doing to help support public libraries, underneath all of this COVID activity. What else is going on that I have not yet talked about? Sorry about that. I just knocked my stylus off. You might have gotten a little bit of rattling. I think I've covered most everything, because a lot of what the information that they've sent out in the last several weeks has been about the funding for libraries, and we will be talking about that in detail later. So I think that I have actually covered most of it. Just to mention, though, that a big focus of what OLC has been doing is creating opportunity for discussions about racial equity. There's not been a lot of that in our specific area here in Brown County, but there have been webinars that our staff could attend, and they also have been good about providing refresher training about voter registration with the big election coming up in several months here. So our staff will be I have had several staff attend that, and we'll be sharing the information with all others. And I also was able to participate in a webinar Zoom meeting with the new state librarian, Wendy Knapp. She seems to be a delightful lady who really knows her stuff. Looking forward to seeing how she will be leading the state through the rest. What an interesting time. You know, she just started her job. Good luck being state librarian in the middle of all of this. And that's it.
Okay. So financial report. Sarah?
So we are through the month of July, so we're 7/12 of the way through. The appropriation summary, month to date expenditures, salaries are obviously still down. 41,662 for the month of July. Our benefits were up slightly. That is because we have started paying those unemployment claims. So that's where that's being taken from. Libraries and materials and purchased and contract services are right where they've been in the previous months. Supplies are about $1,000 and 1,077. So our total month to date expenditures for the general fund is 110,559. The bank reconciliation report. Our prior UAN balance was 765,000. We had $318,000 in receipts. We had PLF. We also had some taxes that were paid to us. We had a friends adjustment from Mount Orb. They gave us some money, so that's always good. Outstanding payments for July all have cleared the bank. There are no outstanding July checks at this time. The general fund cash flow report under actual July. Our PLF was 75,000 for July. We had, like I mentioned before, the property taxes. We had a deposit of 231,000. Some other receipts from other entities, 10,000. So we ended with 318,152 in receipts. So that was definitely, July was a good month. Cash summary by fund. So total expenditures for out of all of our funds was 117,637. Our bank balance was 965,578. Expenditure reconciliation report, payment listing. This looks a little bit different than in the past. I made an Excel spreadsheet to make it a little easier for me. So payment listings, our payments were 60,809. The July 15th payroll was 2,870. The July 30th payroll was 21,537, so slightly more. I think we had an extra day in that pay period. Health insurance for the board chair was high this time. We got a huge credit coming, so that number for August is going to be way low. So don't worry about that. Payment listing. Any questions about the payments? Any questions? Any questions about the financial reports?
Okay, then do we have a motion to accept the financial investment reports, approve paid bills, and accept donations for July?
I move.
I second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have the librarians report.
Yeah, actually, before we start the librarians report, I would like to add another item to the financial report. Just this afternoon, I sent out another document. It never fails. I think I'm ahead of the game, and then new stuff comes in last minute. And these are two motions to set up special funds for the grants that we'll talk about later, or if you want to use this opportunity to talk about them in detail now, we can talk about them now and save time later. But the CARES Act funding for libraries has come through, and both of the grants that I have talked about later, I think they were the announcements, the CARES mini grant and this new one called the Coronavirus Relief Fund are almost guaranteed. I don't want to say it's 100%, but there's no reason, unless they run out of money for the mini grant, that we won't get that 3,000. And there is no reason that I can think of at all why we shouldn't get the larger CRF Coronavirus Relief Fund money. But what has to happen is these special grants have to have special funds to actually be able to handle the money. And so in anticipation of those checks coming in before the September meeting, I'd like us to go ahead and approve setting up those monetary funds to handle the receipt of the checks. So what do you want, what can I tell you now about these, or do you want to talk about other details later and just do the official, yeah, it's okay to set up these funds now?
I'm okay with accepting them now. What about the rest of you?
I am too.
I think so. Yeah, I agree.
Now, did you actually were you able to receive that information, the additional page where I had those listed, or shall I summarize the special funds for you? I actually wrote a motion so that Sarah would have something to put in the minutes so that you wouldn't have to make it up on the spot.
I've
I
got,
just have the electric rate, the extra sheet on the electric rate. I don't have the other one, I don't think.
So why don't I just quickly summarize then the two motions that you need to make?
Okay.
So one motion is to establish a special fund, and the numbers are going to be assigned by UAN, so I don't know the fund number at this point, but the fund will be called the CARES mini grant. And the purpose of this is to receive and expend monies to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. It is $3,000. That's a flat amount given to any library who applies and is awarded the grant. And it comes through IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services. This is the same organization that has funded the GOO grant. So that's where the money is coming from, but it's coming through the state, just like the GOO grant does. And what this does is it gives us that $3,000 to spend from the date of the award through June of 2021. So for future, not for prior expenditures. The second motion is to establish a separate special fund. I don't know the number of this one either, but it will be called the CARES CRF, and that stands for Coronavirus Relief Fund. And it is for receiving and expending monies under the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the Public Library Assistance Program. This award is to be receipted as advised by the Ohio Auditor of State, and is to be expended per U.S. Department of Treasury guidelines. So this is a little bit different. It's not being filtered through the state library. It is actually CARES Act money that was given to the state of Ohio, and money was set aside for public libraries, and that's where this money is coming from. But this grant period covers March 1 of this year through December 30th of this year. So this covers prior expenditures and anything else that is eligible that we can buy through the end of the year.
Is there an amount for that?
Yes. The amount of
That's the
money
best part.
has been determined by the number of branches, and they're giving $25,000 per branch. So we get $100,000 to spend.
Oh, that's great.
And it does not, they only use that $25,000 as a way to determine how much they're going to give us. We can spend, as long as it meets the 3 major criteria set by the Treasury Department, we can spend it in any way we want. So it's not, okay, you have to spend 25,000 on at Sardinia and then 25,000 at Mount Orab. It's just $100,000 that comes to us. And we'll talk more later about some of the detailed things that we're, I've already made a list of stuff that we can reimburse ourselves for and make new purchases. So it's
That's good.
it's
Yeah.
more than pennies from
Okay,
heaven.
so
It's
Yeah.
gold.
want a motion on the first one?
Do you need separate motions on these, or can you do both of them in one?
I think because we have to account for them separately, it would be wise to do separate motions.
Two motions.
Okay,
Yeah.
I move on motion 1 then.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second it.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, do we have a motion on the second one?
Sure.
I move.
I'll move first. Or Harold will move first.
Okay, and then a second?
Are you taking Harold or me?
I took Harold.
Okay. I'll
Karen,
move
second.
Yeah.
He was like a split second sooner. Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes,
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay,
Now, Librarians Report.
now the building report and statistics for July.
So everyone received the building report. Does anyone have any questions? Just a little reminder that you do have a couple of managers hanging out in the meeting. So if you have something specific to ask, now's your chance. I believe that the branches who had them, and Heather, I'm sorry you didn't have a summer youth worker, but the summer youth workers were very much appreciated by the branches that were had them this year, and they are now finished for the year. I believe that program has ended. They didn't do any extensions of the summer youth worker program.
Okay,
Last call, then we'll move on to statistics then. No questions about building report? Your monthly summary doesn't look good as compared to last year in July, but I want to give you a little bit of a heads up as we're planning for a change so that you don't see that last year that we can no longer compare to. So if you compare this July, just last month, with what we did in June, and remember that in June, we started taking appointments mid-month thereabouts. And July, of course, was full-fledged summer reading program, even if it was, pick up your kits and go or online. But most of the totals that you see programs, for example, programs doubled. The attendance doubled from June to July. The number of in-house uses increased by 6,000 from June to July. The number of circulations increased by over 2,000 from June to July. So we see tremendous changes in use even in that short period of time. It will be interesting to see what happens now. Normally August is a slower month because that's quote the back to school month, and that's been ambiguous at best for most people with children in school. But we will be changing up the format so that you won't have to see the last year's information. We'll be comparing it to something else for a while. Or maybe even just doing a cumulative, a year cumulative. Any questions about any of those general statistics?
What was responsible for the large attendance at the programs?
Managers, you want to speak to that?
I would say just the simplicity of being able to stop at the branch and pick up a packet of crafts. If you follow our Facebook, you would have seen some of the patrons that tagged the crafts and activities that they did. They tagged us in them and thanked us. They sent us messages to Facebook, personal messages to thank us for the kits and activities. The summer feeding program was really popular. We had a lot of families, especially this year, where it was a stop in and take home, and they didn't have to eat in-house. That was popular as well. So I think that's pretty much, we've tried to make it, we simplified it. And, you know, if you simplify, then they'll come. And this is not getting any stats of any of the videos that we watched with YouTube or showed. This is just the stats from people coming to the library to pick up packets or to pick up meals, or to bring reading logs and that wonderful stuff.
So the pickups, the curbside pickups were counted under outreach then?
No, curbside pickups were counted as curbside pickups, but they were counted, like if they picked up a kit, a summer reading program kit that had the activities in it, they were counted as a participant. Most of them actually came into the library not as curbside, but as appointments to show off their reading log and show how many books they've read or minutes they had participated in reading, and to pick up more books. At least I know at my branch, I would say everywhere.
We also had an additional 2 weeks of programming in July versus June, because summer reading program started in the middle of June. So we also had a physical, extra 2 weeks. The higher outreach numbers, I would guess, are from the summer feeding program. We were doing, not Fayetteville in particular, but Georgetown and some of the other branches were doing, especially I know Sardinia too, and Mount Orb, I'm assuming the same. We're doing large outreaches to deliver meals, and that was part of our outreach numbers. So they were much higher in July.
I have made a note to actually have someone go and look on our YouTube channel to see what kinds of counts we can get from the summer reading program videos that were made, so we can have a sense of that as well, what the attendance was or the viewing number of views was for those specific activities. I'm not sure how easy it will be to get those numbers from some of the Facebook events. I don't know that we did a lot of Facebook Live, but we might be able to go back through some of the posts and see what kind of response rate we had on those. Hotspot usage was up in July over June, not really a surprise. And our chat assistance also was in use, and we'll be including this for a while anyway, so you can see, and so we can also see how the chat service is going. I did include on one side of that a couple of sample transcripts, and these are not necessarily typical, but they were transcripts of interactions that staff members thought were really important, that the chat service really is serving more than just to, okay, verify the hours or necessarily set up an appointment. But, you know, the first one, particularly where the patron offered that they were hearing impaired and that this was really a great way for this person to communicate with library staff about what their needs were. So things that you don't necessarily think about, you know, a chat service providing it, it really was nice. And just some general nice, encouraging comments that we are meeting needs out there. So it's interesting how when we are forced sometimes to change up what we do, the great response that comes from it, and we see how beneficial it is. So any other questions or thoughts about statistics? Okay. You want me to move on to announcements?
Move on to announcements then.
Alrighty then. Just to mention that our janitorial service, because we chose not to put a hold on that service when the buildings were not being used by the public, but to come through and clean anyway, because we did have staff in and out. They are giving some additional services to us. They're doing some upholstery and carpet cleaning, some other things that they're not charging us for, but out of their gratitude as local employers to continue keeping their people working, they're just doing these extra things for us, which is a really nice benefit to supporting local businesses. A list of things that particularly, not just me, but involve other staff members as well in many cases, that community initiatives and participation. I'll just say it right now, the chamber is just kind of kicking my butt because there's a lot of stuff going on. So I feel like I'm working 3 jobs right at the moment, but that too shall slow down. They've got some staffing changes going on. They've got a loan they're working with and some other funding, and we're trying to figure out how to do meetings when you're not supposed to have mass gatherings. It's a challenge. We are looking forward to fall youth programs here at the library. One of the items I did not put on the list, I think I might have found out about it afterwards, was Storytime kits. And Heather, since this is a brainchild of one of your staff members, I thought you might want to talk a little bit about the Storytime kits.
Sure. Adriana and myself sat together a couple weeks ago. We were trying to come up with some solutions for people that are not comfortable with coming into the library or programming in general, because right now we actually have people that are scheduling like family story times. We usually have about 2 of those a day where she's sitting down and having just a one-on-one story time with families. So we are building kits. It's usually 5 books, rhymes, and activity that goes along with it. We've made 10 so far. 6 of them have already checked out. It's just going to be a lot of work trying to keep up with it. So I've given her some resources to help her and some tips on saving the resources she's going to share with the rest of the programmers so that we're not duplicating effort. But it's just trying to keep the early literacy tips and help the kids still grow from home if they don't have a chance to have that one-on-one activities with the rest of the Storytime groups.
Sounds good, Heather.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. I appreciate you talking about that. We also have been approved to do the fall feeding program, unless something's changed since Heather and I talked just the other day, but the Children's Hunger Alliance that supported us doing the summer feeding is also made it possible for us to do those kind of grab and go meals and or snacks with, and we're going to be combining them with some kind of a fall take home activity. So that's another way to keep people, keep reminding people that the library is alive and well. We're supporting activities, we're supporting families. I'm glad that the Children's Hunger Alliance finds us to be a good, stable partner for this support, because it's been difficult to find the food sources, whereas we can make the contacts with the people. And even as I am going to read this, you know, working with the local schools, I know that the managers and or their staff members have been reaching out to local schools to find out what specifically they might need for support. I've been in touch with the Educational Service Center, and there's an email that came into my inbox just before we started this meeting, trying to get a conversation going at that level to see what we can do to help support the schools. And boy, there's one more thing. Heather. Heather, I'm not going to make you talk again unless you want to, but Heather has taken the lead in researching the electronic homework help. And this is actually would be a paid service where virtually, but live in most cases, our card holding patrons could take advantage of actual tutors online. We've talked about trying to provide homework help in the libraries, but finding volunteers and having it consistent has always been an issue, a challenge. And this would be a service that we would pay for, and it would be there available either remotely or in the library through the computer. So we're looking at that as a good way to spend some of our funds in this coming year, since we can't provide that service here in the buildings. Staff Development Day is also changing up. That's always, you know, twice a year. Well, our first one got canceled because it was scheduled for in March. I can't remember if it technically was supposed to happen right before the stay-at-home order, but we had already been told to shut down when that was scheduled. But our team is working on restructuring it so that we can roll out a staff development activity in each branch. So basically setting up the same kind of training, but limiting it to doing it in each branch so that we don't mix all of those people together in the same place at the same time. So that will be another interesting new thing that we're trying. And now on to the grants. So we all know Guiding Ohio Online finishes in September, end of September. We chose not to renew that. And I'm really glad that we chose not to renew that, because we've got a couple of other grants happening instead. Just so that you know, the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio and the United Way grants, those are not completed yet, but we'll also be looking to them for potential funding, because those will fund other kinds of things, more programmatic things versus supplies and stuff things. And I pretty much have decided that we do not need to do Shared Work Ohio now, because of the funding that's going to be provided by the CARES CRF grant, the Coronavirus Relief Grant. The amount of money that the Shared Work Ohio would have provided to us, and the fact that it's still left people only partially employed does not seem to me to be the best solution. But we'll still let that one sit back there. Who knows what is going to happen next year? Maybe we'll need to look at that. But for now, I'm just setting it on the way back burner. So the mini grant we talked a little bit about, the $3,000 is a flat amount to any library who applies for it. They did not guarantee that you're going to get the money. Part of that is because they only have so much money to give. So we did apply, I got a confirmation that it was received. They are doing their best to go through all those applications and do a relatively quick turnaround on the response. It's been about 6 days, I think, since I filled out that application. Easiest grant application I have ever done. Check, check, check. Yes, I think I'm going to spend it on PPE and maybe hotspots and something else, and type in your name and your contact information and submit it. I love the state library. They're very, very helpful. They made it easy for us. So hopefully, excuse me, hopefully we hear about that very soon. But that is the one that is day forward. So that would not be covering any prior expenditures. The other grant, the CRF grant, is not through the state library, but it is through the Office of Budget and Management. It is direct federal assistance. And the application was actually not very difficult either, because the Office of Budget and Management, Ohio's Office of Budget and Management, let me clarify that, made the process very easy for us. Again, the form online was very easy. We have a set amount of money we've been qualified for. They said every public library who applies is eligible for $25,000 per branch. So we have 4 branches. You do the math, that's $100,000. That can be ours to spend from anything that is specifically COVID related, that was not already budgeted. And I think there's one other specific criteria that it needs to, and it's necessary, I think was the other: necessary, not already budgeted, and specifically addressing a need that came about because of the coronavirus. And that covers all the way back to March 1st. And to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we can use that money for, not only things like Lysol wipes and face masks and disinfectant, but we can pay for the plexiglass shields that we've already installed in our libraries. We can reimburse ourselves for the social distancing decals on our floors, hand sanitizer, paper towels, gloves. Why, did we buy gloves before? We didn't buy gloves before. We can pay for any staff member who uses FFCRA sick leave. You may not remember this, but one of the earliest CARES Act, or that was the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, I think it was what the official name is, made employers of a certain size, including the library, provide 2 weeks of paid sick leave to anyone under certain circumstances. And that would be, you got COVID-19, tested positive, or you were exposed and you were told to quarantine, or you had to care for someone with COVID. There's a list, but anyone who was in those categories could take this additional leave over and above what our policy already provides, and we would have to provide the paid leave. So this grant would cover any monies that we had to expend to pay that extra sick leave. It also covers anything we've had to pay for unemployment costs. Yay. Because, wow, I see, because what this is going to do is going to stabilize our budget, so that as we ride this out, not knowing what's going to happen in the next 6 months, 8 months, whatever, it's going to stabilize our budget so that we can maintain the hours, we can maintain the staffing, even if the economy is doing this a little bit, because it will replace anything we've already had to spend. And that's why I said, I'm not, while I really don't want to have to do the shared work Ohio, that's out there if we need it later on. But it also will cover if ways to help support employees work remotely. So I've got several staff members who need the library to step up and get them a laptop set up so they can do their work from home under certain conditions. So it will cover those costs because they're not something we budgeted before, and we're in this position because of the coronavirus. So I don't think we're going to have any problem spending that $100,000, even though we have to spend it by the end of the year. So this is why I'm glad we're not doing GOO, because there's no way that we could manage to do both of those grants at the same time. Any questions or thoughts about that? I mean, that's some detail, but trust me, there's a whole lot more. There's about 15 pages of instructions that we've been given so far, and there are more to come about how to actually handle the accounting side of it. But what can I tell you about any of that? Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good.
My question is kind of related, but not directly. What kind of response are we getting from visitors to the library as far as face mask wearing?
Why, that's a great question, Heather and Amber. What kind of responses have you specifically seen, or your staff members related to you have you seen yet?
For the most part, patrons have been very respectful and following the initiative that the governor has set forth. We've had a few patrons that refuse to wear them. We've actually created some face masks out of paper towels and rubber bands for people that didn't have them and needed to use the copier or the scanner. Staff has been really good. We don't want to be argumentative. We try to say, you know, if you would like to use the curbside service, you're more than welcome. But we have had a couple that refused, and we just asked them to use the hand sanitizer or to taking them to the bathroom to wash their hands, and ask them to keep distance from the rest of the patrons.
I guess my point is that could we spend a little bit of that money to have a supply of face masks for patrons who walk in? Well, like you said, you're making some out of paper towels and so forth, but if we could have that officially.
So I think there are two answers. You know, for those who come without them and are not going to wear them, doesn't matter if we have them to offer to them.
Oh, I understand that.
But having said that, actually just within the last couple of hours, I had a phone conversation with Al Norris, the director of ABCAP, and he told me to stop by tomorrow at the ABCAP building in Georgetown, because he's got 1,000 paper face masks that he can give to us that they got from Ohio Means Jobs that are meant to provide to members of the public. And he said, you know, you've got members of the public, take some boxes. So
I agree.
Yeah, we'll have some, and those will be helpful both for our staff members and for the members of the public. So, and bigger picture, Harold, I think this provides us with the opportunity to have those on hand, whereas before we didn't have any extra funding, and I wasn't tempted to spend the meager dollars we had supplying them to the patrons. But I would agree with you. Yes, we can do that now.
I think the point is that it's an encouragement to wear a face mask. You know, we moved up to red, and there must be some reason for that. So whatever we can do to help the public, I think would be great.
Yes.
And Lynn, from, you know, protecting our butts, you know, type of situation, we all know kind of where things stand in the country, either on board or you're not on board. There are people that refuse to wear them. But as long as as a library, they're available and we're
Right.
encouraging them, I think our bases are covered.
Yeah, I feel better about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know. And I don't know all of the things, yeah, how we got pushed to red, but I have heard a couple of things, and I do know that part of it may be due to the veterans home and nursing homes, because they're one of those categories where if there's development in cases that ticks another one of the criteria that is used in that color scheme. And that's something I've heard in a couple of different places, both in the last couple of days. So I suspect that might be part of it. But, you know, as we all got really tired of being at home and not doing anything, and we all, okay, listen to me generalize here, but as that became part of the conversation and people went out and did things and enjoyed the summer, we need to expect the fact that, you know, there's going to be greater incidents as people are getting together and doing things. So who knows? You know, it is what it is, and we will just keep on doing what we need to do appropriately, safely, within whatever guidelines have recently come out. So what else? So that's money. That's exciting grant money. And yeah, it means that we're going to be really hustling in the next couple of months to make sure we carry those things out properly. Budget Commission, I actually need to get back in touch with Jill Hall to see if they want us to come on site. Last I had communicated with her, the Budget Commission and the library part of that, she kind of suggested, well, maybe let's, you know, do this by Zoom and not have us on site, which, you know, is understandable. I do not see the Budget Commission changing the way they divide up the public library fund at this point, you know, in time anyway, especially considering the way public budgets are going. So that may not happen as it usually happens in person. And then statewide delivery service has fully resumed, and they have loosened or released the holds. So now holds are not limited to just our local libraries. The holds have been released, so they're being fulfilled by libraries all across the state. I have not heard yet whether there's any talk about, will they put that on hiatus again if any counties are, you know, go from red to purple. I have no idea what the conversation is about that at the state level, but we'll find out. That's all I have.
No committee reports, I don't think so. Next is the motion to approve the law library contracts. A, with the Brown County Law Library Resources Board for provision of law library services in the amount of $21,440. Do we have a motion?
I move.
I second.
Okay.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, B, with the Brown County Commissioners for lease of space for the law library in the annual amount of $6,120. Do we have a motion?
I move.
I second it.
Mark,
Yes.
she's not here. Harold,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, next, number 7 is review of the utility contract proposals, electric and gas.
So does anyone want me to put that chart up on the screen so we can look at it? Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Yep. All right. So let's see how quickly this will respond here. It was a little bit slow earlier when I tried to test it out, and I see it churning now. There we go. All right, are you all seeing that?
I
No,
printed it out already myself.
I did print mine out.
Are you seeing anything now? It says I'm sharing.
Yes, you are.
Cool.
You're
All
good, man.
right. Great.
That's great. All right.
So a little bit of background is that we, of course, you all know, do you get the notices at home? Do you get the phone calls at home, right? That, oh, you need to sign up with us and you'll get better rates. Well, we did that with the library and we got locked into some rates, which were decent rates. And we were with Dynegy for approximately 3 years. So the contract is coming up in January for renewal. So we thought we would go out and get some more proposals. And we did that. So what you see here are the rate quotes. Now you will notice that Georgetown is missing, and that's because Georgetown Utilities handles their electric and they're not part of you can't bid on them. But Duke and AEP are the providers for Fayetteville, Mount Orab, and Sardinia. So that's what was bid on. And what I gave you was, I asked them all to do 12, 24, and 36-month quotes. You can see one of them also gave us an 18-month quote. Personally, I don't think it's worth our time to do a 12-month contract because the amount of time it takes to field all the calls and do this every year is not really worth it to me, but that's ultimately that's not my call. That's the board's. And what you see are 3 providers, AEP, Community Energy Advisors, and True Energy, who made bids. Now, True Energy, you can see based upon comparison with our current rates, they are not going to be saving us any money in Fayetteville or Mount Orab. They would be saving us some in Sardinia. The green highlights are the very lowest per unit cost in all of the proposals. But you can see one of the lowest per unit costs is only a 12-month contract, whereas the other is a 36-month. And then the blue are the lowest per unit quotes in a 24-month contract. Again, my personal opinion is to do either a 24-month or a 36-month contract. And I also listed some more numbers down at the bottom comparing 24-month. If we stuck with a single vendor rather than doing 2 vendors, one, each with the lowest quotes, what the difference in the savings would be. So we can look at that. But I also put in there the estimated usage. Of course, none of these numbers, except for the quotes, the per kilowatt hours quotes themselves, are exact because your usage fluctuates. So what questions can I field about any of these quotes?
How does community come out saving so much more than AEP?
So if you add up if you just went straight across the 24-month and added up those and then compared it with what our current usage is, it's just the amount of, Sardinia is a smaller building with a much lower usage. And I think that's where the big difference comes in, because Community Energy Advisors has the lowest rates for the 24 months in those other 2 higher consuming buildings. Whereas the low rate for for AEP is in Sardinia. So you don't see as large a savings.
Okay, so what are you recommending then?
Well, I'm recommending that we go with a single vendor so that we don't have to mess around with two additional, two suppliers. I truthfully, we did a 36-month before. The new quotes are lower. I'm not opposed to a 36-month contract at all. I will be right up front. The Community Energy Advisors is a group that works with the Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce does get Community Energy Advisors gives them some kind of a fee based upon how much members like ourselves or other businesses that are members of the chamber will save using their contracts. So I don't want to recommend any particular provider. I just want to say that because I'm president of the chamber and I don't want there to appear to be a conflict of interest. So I just am going to say that I think that a 24-month or a 36-month contract with the single vendor is the best option for us. Either way, you're going to save money.
Well, then why don't we go with the 24 months Community Energy?
Okay.
I agree.
Whose kitty is talking to us?
That's mine. I'm sorry.
No,
He's very insistent.
if I were home, it would be one of mine. So trust
Yeah.
me. No.
What about the rest of the group? Are we good with the 24 months Community Energy?
I'm good with that.
I
Yeah.
think
Sounds all right to me.
Do we need a motion?
I would like it to enter into a contract with them. I would like to have board approval, please.
okay. Do we have
Okay.
a motion?
I'll move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes,
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is the review of the COVID-19 reopening plan.
Righty.
Okay.
That paper, it's purple.
Purple paper.
Not to be confused with purple and the health advisory scheme.
Come on, Kat.
So I tried to give you a summary of where we've been through this because we've had a lot of conversations and done a lot of different things. So I just tried to give you kind of a time frame, what we started doing and how it's progressed. I do want to point out that in number 2, when the by appointment, when we started that, and then we moved and extended our hours, we had targeted the end of July for that, but it really took us more time to figure out how to manage the staffing to do that. Then we couldn't turn it around that quickly. So we did not implement those additional hours until August the 10th. And I wanted to make sure you were all aware of that. But, the same kinds of services, as you've heard, we did a lot with the summer feeding program and the summer reading program. So that really kicked up the activity. Based upon that, we're going to have to look closely again at what happens when at the end of September, GOO comes to an end and those dollars that we were allowed to use to help support those kinds of activities are gone, and we have to use our regular staffing. So one of the things that managers will be working on in the next 2 weeks is looking at, okay, same hours, same activities, what do I need for staffing now, and what implications does it have? We did already talk about materials delivery. We are, statewide delivery has resumed, so that's continuing. And of course, that creates more activity. One of the numbers I didn't mention as we were looking at the statistics was that there was a lot more interlibrary loan processed in the month of July than there was in June. And granted, statewide delivery started up, but that means that probably that's going to continue. I don't know if it will get back to pre-COVID levels, but it will continue. Then of course there was the summer reading program, summer feeding, and then staffing. And I did use a couple little abbreviations here, so pardon my math symbols, but I liked math. So I did use those a little bit in telling you how we have rolled out staffing as of August 10th. So remember, right now we're at 3.5 days of service per week. And I have gone back to 100% of my hours. Fiscal officer, I did a boo-boo here. She goes back next week to 100% of her hours as children go back to school. Managers, librarian, and library associates are currently working 75% of their time. And then we looked at the 30-hour library assistants, or 30-hour and more, 30-hour and greater library assistants. We could not, across the board, system-wide, apply a strategy for staffing our branches that would let us say, okay, every library assistant who works 30 or more hours per week is going to come back at X. It just wasn't going to work because our branches have different activity levels, different sizes. So we looked instead at each branch as an individual unit and what its needs were. And so we ended up saying those library assistants who are not doing GOO contracts, we brought them back at the same level as the managers, and library associates. They are now working 75% of their hours in the buildings. Those library assistants who work 30 hours per week normally or more are in the GOO program. We're letting them work as GOO trainers, not as library staff employees. They can still do 20% of their hours because that's the magic number for unemployment. If they go over that 20% of their regular library hours, then it impacts their unemployment. So we're letting GOO carry that load as long as we still got GOO money. And then those library assistants who are scheduled normally for less than 30 hours per week, we have had them at less than 50% of their hours. Now, the reasoning behind that was the pandemic emergency, $600 per week money. You could work approximately half of your hours and get that stipend. But now that that's gone, they can't work more than 20% of their hours. If you're a 20-hour worker, divide that by 5, and 4 hours a week's not a lot of time. But
not a lot of time, no.
But it's still something. If one of your days that you're open to the public is 4 hours, well, guess what? There's a 4-hour shift. So those are most of the moving pieces within this. And this is why this became so complicated and we couldn't roll it right out. Shared Work Ohio regulations made it not easy to just put people on that. And quite honestly, with those 2 other grants, I cannot see us trying to do the paperwork and reporting for those other grants and the spending and trying to do Shared Work Ohio at the same time. So I'm not really sure now, even though last week I thought, we'll do Shared Work Ohio, the money. Since then, finding out about these grants has changed my thought process about Shared Work Ohio. But I do see us continuing to allow people to stagger shifts, to work remotely as they can, particularly our planners, our programmers who need to plan and roll out the new kinds of services in the new ways, keeping them, allowing them to do their work and not have to be in the building if they don't have to be, is really, I think, ideal. And it's what's being promoted from the governor himself. We got notice from our consortium yesterday, sometime this week, that the governor had told them they're all still working from home into January. That's what he wants to do and lead from that place. So I think we need to look longer term at how we're going to handle those kinds of positions. And as I mentioned before, the next thing that the managers will be working on is looking at our current schedules and then the schedules that will move us to 4 full days, 4 7-hour days, and what that would take in terms of staffing. I would prefer not to have to change staffing structures every time we turn around, but if we can make a plan that will cover both now, after GU is done, and adding in that extra half day, then that's the way I'd like to see this work, so that we have as smooth a transition as possible. I do anticipate, though, that when we do not have GU helping us to support our activities, that we will have to mandate a return to work at some level for all employees. So, having said that, it's a whole lot harder to implement these kinds of things than our plan last month actually allows us to do. It feels like trying to turn a battleship on a dime, and that's not working very well. That's one of the reasons it took us till August 10th to get the hours extended for the first time. So I'm going to ask you to look at that plan that you made, and within that structure, which if the structure is great, give us a little more flexibility so we can slowly move and make changes, not just from the staffing side, but also from the patron side. As our patrons are coming back and realizing we are providing services and are taking advantage of those, I cannot see closing appointment or stopping appointments immediately when we're announced that we turn red, and then the next week we go back to orange and we do something different. I think that's not a very good model for keeping consistent services. So I will share another screen with you.
Okay.
Another screen. If it lets me, I will do it. Well, do you see my desktop? That's probably what you see right now, isn't it? Because I don't see the other.
I see somebody swimming.
Yes, that's my, I'd rather be at the beach.
Yeah,
yes.
I can understand.
So here's what I put together and sent late this afternoon as
Okay.
all of this other information had been coming about. So I really need, and I suspect, although we haven't had this discussion as a group with the managers yet, but I think we need some clarification on those phases that were approved last month. So what you approved was, as Brown County is yellow, we do
Yes.
phase three, which is the 3.5 days per week, which is where we are now, and then those other incremental increases that as we had discussed. If we go to orange, we go back to phase 2. If we go to red, we go to phase 1. If we go to purple, well, that pretty much means the state's probably shut down again. So that was what was approved. And based upon the effort it took and the factors that are impacting making the changes between the color codes, I say, yeah, yellow is great. We don't have to do a thing with it. We keep our days and our hours and our services at whatever level we have managed to reach at that point. If then we go to orange, we still keep the current days and hours, whereas before, going to phase 2 would actually have made us change our days and hours. And that's where I'm seeing the problem is flip-flopping our schedules. I think that that's not great for our patrons, well, or for staffing and the managers trying to make those schedules work. But as we keep the days and hours that we're at, that's where we start limiting the appointments. So we reduce the volume of appointments that we have, or the kinds of services that are being taken advantage of as is appropriate for each branch during orange. And I say that for each branch because we cannot do the same things in Georgetown that Sardinia needs, simply because of the size and the physical layout of the branches and the amount of staffing that we have. So it's really asking for a latitude for the managers to be able to make those decisions based upon what they've got for staffing and what they have for space. Then if we moved to red from orange, for the first several weeks, we stay at that same days and hours, but limit the appointments. And I say this because as I'm trying to figure out and watch the history of some of the other counties and where they've turned orange and red and going, how long do they stay in red before they go somewhere else? And that's why I'm thinking, well, if red is kind of a temporary place to be, is it appropriate to say, we're going to watch it and maybe we need to limit a little bit more, even reduce the volume a little bit more as we go red, again, based upon each branch. And then if it goes more than 3 weeks, or we go on that watch list, then even if we remain at the current days and hours, then we really significantly limit at the discretion of the managers. And that was the appointments at the discretion of the managers was what you had allowed us to do as we transitioned from curbside to appointments. There were a couple of weeks where you allowed the managers to decide what was an appropriate, reason for coming in and using the facilities or services. Now, I've waffled truthfully between 2 weeks and 3 weeks on level red, and I'm hoping that you all can give some guidance on that. And of course, purple would stay the same. We're just making the assumption that going purple means we're all at a dead standstill again. So what questions might I answer for you about what all that means or looks like?
There might be necessary to build in a delay for moving to purple, because in my mind, that might be the most volatile.
So is that something then that you would think we say, again, they're doing this on, they collect the data on Wednesday, we find out on Thursday what the new color is. And so are we saying like the Monday, or do we say a week? I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that transition period.
Well, I would build in at least a week, because you've got a week between the color changes, right?
Yes, the color changes happen every week. That's correct. I don't know if this is something the managers can weigh in on from the standpoint of what impact does that have right in your branch if we had to make that kind of a change. Is a week sufficient?
I think a week is sufficient. It gives us an idea of whether or not it's going to change again the next week. I just think we would need to be really smart of how many appointments that we made, and we would probably need to encourage more curbside service during that time.
I think that the crucial piece of that transition would be informing the public. That would be the biggest concern. So as long as the public can be informed in all of our normal places that we inform the public of our status, then we would be okay.
What else? Anything else I can answer about that, or?
It's just a balancing act, Lynn. I mean, it's all it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to take purple deadly serious. You know, red's serious as well. The balance is, you know, it could change every week. And that's the challenge. You know, taking it seriously, but also understanding, you know, it could change the next week. Just, you know, we just have to do the best we can.
I think the thing that I have difficulty I wouldn't say understanding, but appreciating is what is the volume of work that's going on in the branches connected with each of these.
So I don't know if Heather or Amber want to speak about what does a typical day look like when you're doing a 9 to 4. Hey, Heather, I see you're ready to tell about how many phone calls are coming in at the same time, and
I just have to be honest and say I laughed evilly there for a minute whenever he asked that question. I mean, I don't know what the volume, even at Red, the volume is just as busy as it has been any other time. So it's, well, like Mark said, there's no rhyme or reason for anything. Everything changes constantly. So I think we have so many people that live in this area that just want to go on with their life and do things the way they want to do things. So a colored map is not going to stop them. So our workload is busy.
it is. Go ahead, Amber. I see you've unmuted.
I was just going to say, I agree with that. I think that in the beginning, when we first had the stay-at-home order issued, our people's attempt at contacting us or showing up, you know, and emailing and leaving messages, because we were still checking communications at that point, had slowed down. But I can say, and maybe Heather can, you know, attest to this, that we have not experienced public involvement at that level since we went to code orange status and we opened back up. It has been busy, and the attempts at contacting us has increased greatly since June. And I don't foresee that changing because, like Heather said, nothing, I think our public has come to a place where they've had enough of being told to stay home. So if we're open, they'll come or try to contact us at this point. That's just my opinion.
And actually, you know, Heather, that is a great point and something I didn't think about. You know, we're entering month 6.
Right.
Month 6. And, you know, people are climbing the walls and, you know, everybody wants to move on and the president is urging everyone to move on. And so, yeah, you're right. We're probably not going to see a difference in the volume of work and maybe even go up. You know, and then, you know, it's like the same conversation we had last month, the month before, you know, we just have to take it one step at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, because school's opening back up next week. And who knows what's going to happen there. You know, we've already seen indications across the country that there's problems that are starting. You know, so we don't know. So let's just keep it 1 week at a time. If a week is enough for you guys to make an adjustment, I'm good with that. And I have a sneaking suspicion, you know, we're going to be having this same discussion through the end of the year, each month.
Unfortunately.
Goody, yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm shaking my head at church, just agreeing because it feels like.
Yeah.
Amen. That's right. So I just to explain a little bit about my use of the word volume, my use of the word volume was not so much the volume of people coming to you or clamoring for service, but if things are kind of dicey in our red county and, you know, we see it creeping towards purple, is that a point in time where we start saying, okay, we can't have 5 groups of people coming, you know, family groups coming in and doing their hour or whatever at the same time. And we need to control the volume in our building at that point. So that's really where I was coming at it from the other side, saying this is a point where we can control if we need to limit, because the other factor that's not mentioned in here anywhere is that what happens when one of our staff is diagnosed positive? And even if we have been doing everything we can and wearing our masks and sanitizing, but those 2 other staff members who worked the same shift with that person are, you know, then told that they must quarantine. Now we've got a building that doesn't have enough people to provide the service, and we don't have enough people necessarily to pull from somewhere else. So that's a whole nother piece of this that we're going to have to be looking at. And there may be a time where we just say, oh, guess what? This building is going to be closed for the next week as we sanitize and quarantine and whatever else needs to be done. So that's a whole nother, not even on the list kind of thing that it's a when. It's not an if. It's a when.
Yep.
I will say this though, at least I think the public would understand. This has happened locally already, in a couple places that have had to close for a week or 2. I mean, a bank I use was closed. So, I mean, it's coming.
Yes, it is. It is.
So Lynn, what do you
Yeah.
want us to specifically approve tonight?
I guess what I want is, you know, clarification that we have the ability to not immediate, you know, the minute we turn red or the minute we turn orange, that we have to make that change, because we turned red the day after the last board meeting. I think it wasn't the day after, it was something, there was some kind of change, and I thought, we don't have time to make that switch. So I didn't want to violate any directive or policy, and I wanted to make sure that we were understanding, well, what does a change mean? In my mind, the change does not mean we're going to go back and flip our schedules again. We will keep those schedules as long as we can maintain services, but we may be curtailing the amount of services we provide as we are trying to plan to, oh, guess what? In 10 days, we're gonna have to, it's, we're going purple and we're all gonna be just done for a while. So that's really, I guess, what I need clarification is that those phases that have been approved last month, it's okay for us to play them out in the way that I've kind of written down and we've talked about tonight.
Yes, I'm personally
Okay.
okay with that. And, the key, Lynn, I think you have a very good management team. You do. And I know you trust them all. And I think the key here is going to be at the discretion of the managers. So if you guys have meetings, you talk about it, and we're in situations where, good discretion is going to be used, I would trust them. And I think that's one of the keys for me.
The plan that we have before us is probably a guideline, but I think we need to add a caveat which says that depending upon the conditions, the working conditions in the branches, in other words, we might follow this guideline where everybody except one branch has a couple of staff members who are, and it's not appropriate then or not feasible to keep that branch open.
That's a good point, Harold. I would agree. It's a very good point.
Okay. I'm going to unshare here. Unshare, stop sharing. Okay, so any other thoughts or I don't know if you want to, if you feel it's necessary to have in the minutes that, we discussed this and that we've approved it with that, with the caveat or based upon working conditions at individual branches so that we can have some flexibility in rolling out those services.
I think it's important to state it within the plan document.
I think it'll work fine until we have one person that gets sick.
Well, that's why I said
Yeah.
in my mind, it's where we're prepared. I'm prepared for. It's not if, it's when. We've already,
Right.
we've already had in our circles people, staff members who have in other places possibly come into contact with, and so they individually have to do whatever it is they have to do. So we've dealt
Right.
with it at some point. We're going to have it here with amongst our staff, and we will have to deal with it at that point in time. So
Right.
Yes. Not a smooth running world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So Harold, am I interpreting you correctly to say that you want to have the board approve the updated plan then with
Approve the updated plan, which allows you a little more flexibility about the purple, before you move to purple closure. And then also the caveat that even though this is a planning document, it depends upon the conditions on the ground.
Okay, so you want a motion?
Move.
I second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, do we have a motion to enter executive session to consider the employment of public employees?
Move.
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes. Okay, staff updates.
So at this time, I am